breaking this evening. For one, a Fidelity rep let slip that all the shares are synthetic. Oops. If you're in a brokerage, you probably have fake shares. The counterfeits. And folks have been getting the runaround from their brokers. They call the broker, they're like, oh, you gotta call AST, figure out what's going on. You call AST, and they're like, you gotta call the DTCC. And you call the DTCC, and they say, you know what, you gotta call a broker. There are a couple of things you can do with regards to trying to get your next bridge out of your Acme. And one of the things you can do is when you call your broker, say, I would like you to ask the DTC for me about where the shares are. Because they've got this little system called WINS, which is a communication channel specifically designed to elevate retail broker concerns from the brokerage to the DTC. And these logs are public domain. Like you can download the logs, the WINS logs, and see if your broker actually did the contact or not. There's a user who wanted to remain anonymous, but he's contacted me and he's contacted Roza, who can show that he specifically asked, I think it was TD Ameritrade who he had, to contact the DTC on his behalf and elevate his concerns. And then he went and checked the logs and discovered that not only had they not contacted DTC about this, they have never contacted DTC ever for any customer of any kind regarding Acme. So they're doing the runaround, right? Like they're passing the buck on to the next guy and pretending like it's the next guy's problem. The fact that Fidelity was willing to admit that they had counterfeits in their customers' accounts seems to me like evidence enough for any judge to say, okay, they didn't close their positions as required by law, as required by the S1, as required by FINRA's own corporate action. They're going to have to close these positions before we can move on from this at all. Because otherwise it's just going to be a giant mess. Because as we can see, it's a giant mess. I had two different people today message me with minutes of each other, I think from E-Trade, who had customers at E-Trade. And one of them told the customer that, oh yeah, it's all going to be squared away. You'll have your next bridge by the 29th, 14 days after issuance. And then they told the other customer, oh, it'll be happening by January 9th, which is the next year, which is almost a month after issuance. For a system that's electronic, right? Like it's an electronic system. It's a fast system. It's like you go into your keyboard and blink, it's done. That's the whole reason why you make an electronic system. And instead of being able to go and be done, you're going, I don't know. Call the other guy, see if he knows. And you call the other guy, he's like, I don't know. That doesn't really seem to be a type of system that instills confidence into shareholders. I mean, we got a snippet of it when GameStop did their dividend split, right? They issued the 240 million shares or whatever to ComputerShare. ComputerShare gave out a bit to their customers who are registered, and then they gave the rest to the DTC to spread amongst the brokers to fill people's accounts. Instead, the DTC took those shares and then told all the brokers to make it a forward split, and they magically just split the shares that already existed into more rather than adding to their totals with that pile. Which means there's somewhere out there an extra 200 and something million shares that never got distributed. So we know that the malfeasance is there. We know that they're being shady as fuck. And we know that they'll get away with it unless we raise a stink. So, there's awesome folks like you who have been contacting your elected representatives. You've been filing official complaints with SEC. You've been filing tips to the FBI. Fantastic. Get the financial crimes dudes on this. Because, I mean, this is remember, we're just one little puny microcap stock. And there's enough liability tied up with that microcap stock to take down the whole of the global economy. Right? So, like, how else are you going to fix this thing unless we can show them that it's broke? That it's a big, giant smoke and mirrors magic show that these so-called regulators, these private companies that regulate the market somehow, but all the positions are filled with members or owners of the funds they're supposed to be regulating. There's definitely, fox watching the henhouse mentality on this. And then the SEC is completely toothless. They can go, that's bad, and then issue a $10 fine to somebody. But we need like more guts in there. And that's what I think you guys have been doing. It's been fantastic. And so the most recent update from Roza was hours and hours and hours. It was like 9 hours ago. See if I forgot to check right before I came on the show. She's probably asleep right now, but she's like just looking for as much sleep as humanly possible. 12 hours ago was her most recent update that she had contacted judge's chambers, asked for a hearing to rule in my favor on TRO due to the emergent circumstances. No response yet. So I have no idea if there's been an update, if she got in there at all sometime today. Hopefully tomorrow she'll be able to get in there. It is time. Time is of the essence, and they've got basically 10 days to wrap this up. 11 days. Otherwise, it carries over the next year, and that just means weird tax liabilities for everybody. So, I do think there's a good chance that a federal judge who all they care about is the particulars and the peculiarities and the specificities of law. They don't care what it could do to the economy. They don't care if someone's fees are hurt. They don't care if elected officials are like, no. They don't care if some rich guy cares. They will look at the law and they'll go, the law says you have to do this, so that's what you guys are going to do. And FINRA might be like, Your Honor, but there's not enough time for us to figure out how to get this thing trading again. The judge will be, you just go to your computer and go, and it starts trading again, right? That's how you got it to stop trading, so you can make it trade by going on a computer. I don't care. And they might be like, well, we're going to appeal. Well, the judge may say, like, you can appeal, but you still have to carry out my order by the 31st of December. You got 2 days, figure out how to trade, close all the shares. And you might have brokers that say, well, even if FINRA opens up trading, TD Ameritrade, we're not gonna have them for sale. The judge might say, TD Ameritrade, you have to close all short positions that are inside your accounts. I don't care how you do it. It might cost a fortune. You may be liquidating a whole bunch of hedge funds and banks. I don't care. Do it. And the TD Ameritrade goes, what? He says, you do it or you're toast. And then they have to do it. That's the great thing about federal judges. They can just tell you to do something and you kind of have to do it. Otherwise, they issue a warrant and then you're just in contempt and you're fucked. So, that's granted, that's like the pie in the sky, rainbow land ideal situation. But it's obvious the law's on our side. It's obvious they've been lying and giving the runaround. It's also obvious they're never going to get the next bridge shares. They just aren't. They don't have them. The AST took them all. There's nothing to sprinkle over to the DTC to distribute to the brokers. Therefore, the brokers aren't going to get anything. There's a gentleman posted on our Reddit just a little bit ago that he's got lending turned off on his brokerage account, and Webull has been lending his shares. His Acme shares have been getting lent out post trading halt. So he had shares and they took them. So he has definitely synthetics in his account. So we know that they're synthetic. We know they did not close. People keep asking things like, well, what if they actually did close all their positions and there aren't any shares? The last day of trading, they traded 13 million shares. We know 9 million of which were short. And if there was no more trading after that, how did they close those positions? How did they cover? They didn't. So at the very least, there are 9 million shares short. That's just one day. We can look at the FTDs and the amount of shares that were borrowed over the past who knows how long. I mean, there were 2 billion share transactions since October of last year on this piddly little stock. 2 billion. That is crazy. That's an insane number of shares to trade for a little micro cap. Like, that should not be the case. And then people are like, well, you know, they got those the tokens, the digital tokens, the blockchain tokens that we're trading. And, you know, those trade for a 1-for-1 that are required to by law. I don't know if that's actually true. But they minted 500 billion of them. You think if you minted 500 billion of a particular security, that it's going to be 1-for-1 when there's only 165 million of that security? No. It's just an array of crime and fraud that is everywhere. And our only hope to do something about it is to raise such a stink that they have to do something about it. Just be relentless, be persistent, be annoying. Say, do something, do something, do something, do something to every person who is in a position to do something about it until they do something about it. Just don't stop ever, right? Because the only way they're going to be able to keep 64,000 of us from bugging them constantly. 64,000 people is enough to fill a stadium. Any woman in the chat right now who's been in a stadium of 64,000 people knows exactly how awful the bathroom line is in a place like that, right? That's the type of line that should be outside the door of every elected official at the federal level. Should be the awfulness of waiting for the bathroom at a football stadium. So, you know, we can tag team. Someone wants to be like, okay, I gotta take like 4 days off. There's another 63,399 of you that can like tag right in and go, all right, my turn to annoy the elected official. My turn to submit another tip to the FBI. My turn to file a complaint to FINRA or the SEC. My turn to call the broker once more. The brokers are just like, oh my gosh. And they're trying to figure out whatever way they can to like get you off the phone. One of the brokers today told someone that, oh, like all the Series A shares went out, but apparently all the customers have Series B shares and they haven't gotten those yet. There are no Series B shares. There was Acme 1, which then became Acme, and that's it. and that stuff becomes NextBridge. So they're trying to figure out however they can to get you off the phone and leave them alone. And you just call them again and be like, hey, so where are my shares? And they're going to go, you gotta call the DTC. And they're like, okay, how about you call a DTC for me on that Win system and ask them where my shares are? And they go, what? And like, well, you're kind of required to by law. I'm asking you to use the dedicated communication channel to contact the DTC and ask them where my shares are. So please do that right now. So, you guys can elevate this anytime you want. Keep going, rock and roll. They got to pay us. By law, they're supposed to pay us. And I think Roza can make that argument. Someone told me that another lawyer filed suit, but I didn't see anything on his Twitter page. What was I can't remember his name. So you know, there's probably more going to be happening, and I hope some of you are also, you know, especially those of you out in those tiny little rural states with some lonely federal judges who are looking to make a splash, file as well. Oh boy. Okay.